No, mate, you're right.
Yeah, you.
Yeah, not bad. Cheers. Yeah,
Can you hear me all right?
yeah. It's a bit tinny, but it's all right.
Yeah, because I had a really good microphone that I left it at school, but good old
Ah,
Max.
okay. What, did you just get locked up for summer?
No, I've left that school, so I'm moving to another one. But I was just hiding out my office and just left it there.
Ah, right. Fair play.
What are you doing?
How about doing? Yeah, I'm all right, mate. Yeah, just chilling. Friday night in, like it is these days. But you're off to work, off to DJ tonight.
I'm off to work. Yeah, yeah. No, yeah, I'm DJing. So I got the pop night, unbelievable one. So it should be all right. Done like 40. I do it free entry now, so because people just don't want to pay to get into the back of a pub.
Ah, okay, where is it?
It's at that place where you came, the Victoria. I think you've been there for
Uh,
one of the nights. I'm sure you came for.
I definitely came. I came to one that was in a basement, that was on like a basement floor.
Oh right, that would have been that would have been in Oxford Circus. But no, it's maybe you haven't been then. Maybe it was Markham. I'm not sure. Yeah, it was Markham went, and
Yeah.
it's in the back room of a pub in Dalston. So I've got a few nights there now. So that's yeah, it's good. I just do it free entry because nobody wants to pay. They sort of dip their head in. It's like, oh, £5. I won't bother. So let's do it for free now instead.
Ah, fair play.
Charity.
When did he get into that then?
What? When did I get to Victoria?
Well, should we take, I suppose, just let's just go back to the start, I guess.
Yeah.
Like growing up, you were Eastall, weren't you?
Yeah. Where are you? You were Beverley. Is it Beverley you're from?
I went to school in Beverley, but I was always lived in Hull.
Oh, right, yeah. Now I was Eastall, so like, yeah, like Sutton. And yeah, I think there weren't many people around that area that were, well, especially when I was at school, weren't into indie bands like the Strokes and stuff. And it was only until when I went to
What
see,
school did he go to?
I went to Mali.
Okay, right.
Is this part of the podcast, by the way?
Yeah,
so, so yeah, so yeah, I went to Mount Lambert, and I sort of knew people from Cottingham and stuff like. So I went out with a girl from Cottingham when I was in like year 11, and she used to work in Rockefeller. You remember Rockefeller
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
down Hepworth Arcade? And she was really cool, and she dressed like really cool, and she knew like. I think her sister was going out with one of the Landows. Do you remember them?
Yeah, they were
So
very Cottingham, yeah.
yeah. So it's like the Landows, and there's like she knew all them lot, and obviously they were sort of like mates with the Paddingtons and stuff. So like I'd see them like in Cottingham and stuff, and I just thought they were cool as fuck. I was never really a fan of like the Paddingtons, but in Meet Me in the Bathroom where they talk about the Strokes walking into a bar and how cool they were and stuff, and everyone was like, "Oh, I just want to be with them now." They were like that, I think. Like I was never a big fan of the band, like musically, but they looked really fucking cool. Like you know what I mean? Like they just looked good in everything. Like all their clothes just fit really well. They had like good hair, and they were really cool. And I was like, "Oh fucking hell, yeah!" They had that sort of presence, if they walked.
I know what you mean, yeah.
If they walked into like of all places, Linnet and Lark.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was
It's hardly
thinking,
fish
yeah.
shapes in New York, is it? But it's like they walk into Linnet and you'd sort of turn heads and stuff, and yeah, they was like cool as fuck. But yeah, I was like East Hull. So then it was only when sort of my friend, Jamie, but me and Jamie went to school together, but didn't know each other at school.
Oh, right.
And like he was a year above me, and I was at my friend's house one night, and I took some CDs to play, and I took like, if you imagine like a group of East Hull lads who would go to Magaluf on their first holiday, like I took the Strokes' first album, Interpol, Turn on the Bright Lights, and Pink Grease.
Right.
Do you remember Pink Grease from Sheffield?
Yeah, yeah.
And then I took TV on the Radio's first album to like a sort of gathering. And then there was a girl there a girl called Becky, and she rung a brother up, Jamie, and was like, "Do you know these bands? Like this guy's brought these CDs." And then I think he was the only other person in East Hull that was listening to that sort of
But
stuff.
how were you getting into that music? Like what was informing you?
So I got into the Strokes when I was 13. It's one of those things where it was sort of like right place, right time. And I was on holiday with my family in Mallorca, and they played a Stroke song on the radio. It was Sunday, and then I went and bought a copy of Q magazine from like the shop around the corner, because they did like a few like English newspapers and magazines, and there was this like sort of double spread in like the news section about the Strokes selling out. I think it's the Astoria at the time, which is closed down now. And again, it was just one of those things where it's really exciting, and you couldn't really find the music elsewhere. Like you couldn't just go download it straight away. You had to like wait for it to come on the radio, go and buy the CD. And then, so I got in off the back of that, like got into, do you know HMV on White Frigate?
Yeah.
So they used to have the listening posts, and so did Virgin Megastore in Prince's Quay. And I remember buying a copy of The Face magazine. I was like a really pretentious, like 14-year-old. Like the Strokes were on the front, and it was this like feature about all these new indie bands. And it was Strokes, Interpol, Yeah Yeah Yeahs, a band called the D4, the Rapture, and so like sort of check those bands out of the back of that. And they'd always be on the listening post in HMV. And so then I listened to Turn on the Bright Lights there, and it sort of just spiraled from that. But my auntie used to work at, there's a lot of Hull references in this chat. I don't know if people get it.
All right.
My auntie used to work at Comet, the electrical appliance head office on George Street, and she worked with a guy who used to buy the NME every week. He'd buy it every Wednesday, and once he'd read it, he'd give it to her, and she'd bring it round to ours every Wednesday. So you'd just be reading like these new sections, you know, about new bands that have come out, and there'd be a CD. There was a really good CD that came with it called The New Rock Revolution. And it had like Specialists by Interpol, had the Vines on it, had Libertines. And you just sort of like hear these bands. You just had to buy the CDs back then. It was like really like hit and miss. And I think you had to sort of go with what the NME was giving really, really good reviews. So like they'd get like say the Vines album was going to be out for like a month, but they'd have heard it, and you'd get really excited by these things that you've not heard yet. And then, you know, you just have to go and buy the CD and sort of just absorb it, you know, but you sort of put it on when you're doing your homework, and you just have to take it in. You can't just, you'd never skip the tracks. You couldn't stream it. You just had to buy it and give it a shot. So there's all these other weird bands like Icara Cult, and what else do they have? Like Departure. Yeah, so it's like weird stuff. But then a lot of them would like sort of pass through Hull as well. So I think it must have been about 16, but there was a guy called Dean Shakespeare.
Yeah.
You know him, yeah. And
was it Under the Influence?
That's right. Actually, I've looked at it wrong, but they call so Under the Influence on Instagram. They're called UTI events, which is quite fun. Unless you've got like cystitis, you know. Look at them. Yeah, that was when I was about 16. So he was putting on. He started putting on these bands, and I think I remember like he had a vintage shop for a little bit in Trinity Market. And I used to go in and talk to him about bands and stuff. And I think I gave him like a Maccabees compilation of their really early tracks, because Jamie was like, I think he was unemployed after when he finished. Well, no, he probably wasn't. He's had a lot of time on his hands, and I think he was like just finding all these bands on these blogs and stuff. So there was a blog called Hype Machine, which was like a really big blog at the time, and they'd had like loads of new stuff on there. So Jamie would just download all these songs and put them onto, I wish I still had them, all these compilation CDs, and then we'd go to his on a Thursday before Welly, and he'd be like, listen to this, is, you know, this band, blah, blah, blah. But then MSN Messenger was like, when I got broadband, you could send a song in like a minute. So he was sending all these like, you know, Maccabees and White Rose Movement and Forward Russia and all that stuff. And I think it was just through me and him really like sharing. Well, he was the one that was getting it all, and we were sort of passing it on to friends and making CDs for people. But I don't know. I think it was just really, I just really enjoyed it, and it was cool. I didn't want to stand out at school, but I just ended up listening to that stuff, and it sort of takes you to your people, doesn't it? And then having met Emily when she worked in Rockefeller, and then, you know, you start to get to meet all these people and stuff, and I think it was a bit of a scene in Hull, wasn't it?
Yeah, you know, I was definitely the same. Like I used to go watch.
Meet me in the bathroom. It's like, because I mean, half the bands that came out. Well, I say half the bands. That's probably too generous, but a lot of the bands that came out of that scene were, I mean, terrible.
Well, they're just pub bands, weren't they? Yeah.
They were pub bands, yeah, and you can see what they were trying to emulate and stuff. But it was like a scene, and everyone will go to like the same places. I mean, there weren't that many places to go, but I think when I was about 16, you wanted to go somewhere that wasn't Position or you know, playing R&B and stuff. Ironically, I like, you know, doing R&B night now, but you know, back then I didn't feel like I'd fit in Position.
I know what you mean. Yeah, like the first nights out,
you know what
we
I mean?
went on.
I didn't shop at Bank. I didn't have a Lyland Scott jumper. Like I'd like daft hair. I'd cut a fringe in at one point. So I had a night out in Leeds and fucking cut a fringe in, and then, you know, I'd have got my head kicked in if I'd have gone there. So I think going to places like Welly and Spiders was, you know, not to sound like corny, but you sort of find the people that you want to be with and share things with. And I think we found at places like Welly. I suppose Spiders to an extent, but
Spiders was great, wasn't it?
Spiders was great fun. Like I drive past it quite a lot when I go back home and sort of think, you know what, maybe one Saturday.
Yeah, that'd be the one place I'd quite want to go.
Yeah, I was talking to a mate yesterday about the drinks prices and how there was a big hoo-ha about them putting the drinks prices up. So I went on the website and it's like a pint of Stella is £1.60. I think it's up from £1.40.
Fucking hell.
It's ridiculous. But
how are they making money on that?
I know, and it's mad. But then they're selling like Boddingtons on draft, which I don't think is anymore. But then all those nights, you know, you go to Rhythm Room on a Tuesday, and they had that. Remember that buzzer thing where you went to the bar and they give you a buzzer and you either get all your drinks for free or you get like a free.
Yeah, you on about Attic?
Attic, yeah. It was Mark Page's night, wasn't it? Who ran the sesh.
Yeah.
I think he DJ'd Attic, and then it moved to it was Rhythm Room, and then moved to Attic.
Okay, right.
And I mean, it was always the same faces in there, you know.
Yeah. The Grapevine.
Yeah, it was, but yeah, Grapevine. That was it.
Yeah.
And you go watch some like absolutely dog shit bands, including my own band by a short-lived pop punk band, Jackknife.
I was going to ask that. Did you ever have a band? Yeah.
I did have a band. I was actually in a band with Sam V. You know, Sam Venn.
Okay, right. Yeah.
And I suppose like that's quite a big part of the narrative where I worked with Sam at Top Man when I was like 16, so it was my first ever job. And Sam was working there as well. I think Sam's a few years older than me. I'm not sure how old, but he was like, you know, an adult compared to me. And then we sort of worked with each other, and I don't know what came first. I don't know if we were playing in a band or like Jelly at the Welly came after it. I think it was Jelly first, because there used to be a night there called there was a night on a Thursday. It was Sweet and Sour.
Yeah. Is that Ted's night?
That was Ted. Yeah. And they had some amazing bands on. Like at Welly, I think I saw Block Party. I saw Kaiser Chiefs. I said amazing bands, but you know, Ordinary Boys, Harmar Superstar played there one night, and then that sort of stopped, and it moved to Silhouettes or Pilouettes as people called it. and then Sam Venton got in touch. Was like, I've been asked to do this indie night at Welly on a Thursday, and he was DJing the main room, and I used to ring him every Thursday on a landline and ring him up at his mum's house and reel off about 50, 60 names for the guest list. Like, you get a message on MySpace, you know, can you get us guest list for tonight? And obviously I felt like really cool because I was sorting people out with free entry, and I was like the middleman. If it's all went in Top Man as well, you know, that also helps.
Yeah, what was it like? What was it like working there? That was before Top Man kind of latched onto the indie thing?
I think, yeah, because he started doing like blazers and like shirts and ties and stuff. And I don't think it caught on for like a long time. I'd probably say until like, the whole skinny jeans thing was about 2007.
Yeah.
2004. I did like a sort of like when New Rave was a thing. I think that was probably the first time where, well, I think Top Man started doing like the sort of rip-off vintage shirts, you know, like with the college logo and stuff like that, and trying to emulate that. I don't think they started doing skinny jeans until another like 4 years. Like I was wearing the girls' ones from Topshop, so as part of my uniform allowance, I couldn't wear like the jeans that they did because they were too big. And I think I was probably like a size 6 back then, Like I was proper.
Yeah, you were tiny, weren't
I mean,
you?
I was tiny. I've got like the complete opposite end, and I was probably about 8 stone, wearing like size 6 girls jeans. And part of my uniform allowance, they let me buy like, they were called bobby jeans, I think. They were like these really like quite low rise skinny jeans, but they're the only thing that really fit. So I think everyone was just shopping at Beasley's and Rockefeller.
Yeah, I used to get mine from Beasley's Criminal Damage ones. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to get the plimsolls from Rawcliffe's.
Rockliffe.
And yeah, Rawcliffe's Intersport, another store.
Yeah, yeah.
So I used to get plimsolls from there, and then my girlfriend always takes a piss at me because I always say that I started the plimsoll trend, but probably one. But then I'd buy like the blazers from there, like the plain kids blazers, and we'd also like we'd shop at British Home Stores at BHS because they had like a back to school.
Oh yeah, I remember those like V-necks.
So me and my friend Andy Holmes.
Andy Holmes, yeah, legend. Yeah.
Andy man. Me and Andy Holmes, like he's back in Hull now actually, and he was into like, he was from Cork. So I used to have another girl from Cork, and he was friends with her, and he was really into like the Mars Volta, and me and him became like best friends for it and stuff. And me and him, he'd be like, he'd have some intel about some £3 V-neck jumpers in VHS. And so like we'd go down on a Saturday and we were trying these little cardigans on, and the woman who came over, this lady at BHS, was like, "Is this a joke?" And I was like, no, we're genuinely going to buy like a load of like V-neck school jumpers, and we wore them to death, you know, like, and we're only about £3. So these little tiny cardigans and stuff. But I don't think Top Man really caught on until, I'd probably say like the new rave era, when I was living in Leeds at uni. And
yeah, new
rave was a thing. So these then big like Frankie Says Relax t-shirts became a thing again, and like multicolored chinos, you know, like every single color you can imagine, like bright blue, bright yellow. And I think that's when it started to sort of latch on a bit, because I think, you know, people were more inclined to like buy cheaper stuff. Like charity shops were quite big in Hull, like everyone was always going to charity shops, and really good ones, and sort of like quite a few vintage places popped up. I think there was a sense of like you know, people trying to outdo each other in Hull a little bit in terms of like, what they were wearing. So like, you know, the brogues that you had, or something like a really nice pair of brogues or a leather jacket. I was always really envious of like Tom Atkins. He had a really beautiful leather jacket. It would probably like be about that big these days, but it was like a black leather with like elasticated back and cuffs on it, and it was like, oh, it was so nice. So he was always just trying to outdo people with like the tightest t-shirt, or how much midriff you could get away with, or you know, like.
And there was like in Welly, there was almost like rival groups, weren't there?
There was, and I think it's weird because I've known you for nearly 20 years, but we've only sort of been friends for like the past 10, I'd say.
Yeah. It's like at Welly, it was like we were the right side, you were the left side, I think.
That's right, yeah. And it was really odd. And even though there was nothing to be like rivals about, it was just, I think, this weird underlying rivalry about who was cooler. And so we were like the Easter lot, and there was all the Western lot, and like I think my group were quite a bit of a.
You were in with the Cot lot though, weren't you, as well?
So, yeah, to an extent, yeah, because like obviously Kinman's from Cottingham and Moses and Gideon, but then we had a lot of friends from like Ferriby and Brough, like from that end.
Yeah.
And then we weirdly, like, I think it's all to do with like either MySpace or girls that people went out with who from different parts of Hull. And me and Jamie being from East Hull and meeting people from Ferriby, it was like a different world. Like they had like big houses and 2 cars and a downstairs toilet and stuff like that. It was like, and the girls would talk about horse riding and they'd sort of take the piss out of our like East Hull accent, which I seem to have lost a bit these days when we're teaching. But yeah, and then our group, I think, like our group of friends were sort of, again, it was through like people's girlfriends, but we became friends with like the hardcore punk lads, like who listened to Virgin and I can't really name any other metalcore bands, but they go to Spiders, and it always ended up with like some sort of fight, and then everyone else would become friends like after the fight, because the person who was fighting they weren't really fond of anyway. So like, it was like, right, fuck him, and then we'd be mates. But yeah, it was just weird. But I think it was always because there was a girl involved.
Yeah, I think I remember Jack said, I think Jack telling me a quote that you said once. I think somewhat like, "You might know the Paddingtons, but we know the girls," or something like that.
I don't think I would have said that. But, I mean, I don't know if I would have said
It sounds like more like Chenzo, to be fair.
It does sound like him, doesn't it? But yeah, God, if I did say that, that is embarrassing. But, yeah, because it was like a weird rivalry. I think even you like punched one of my mates one night after Spiders. I remember on the bus, and like
Really?
I think you were going through some stuff, and you just turned around and lamped him one. But I think
Really?
it's been like bubbling. I think it was Nick. Yeah, I'm sure it was
Nick who?
Mennel.
No, that was in Welly.
Was it Welly? I'm sure
That was over a girl. That was over Megan Hayward.
Oh bloody hell! That's a bleep.
But he didn't do that wrong. Yeah, I was. I think he was just chatting to her, and I got annoyed, and then
yeah, it's mad. But it's always
that's the only fight I've ever had as well.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had one outside. There was always a fight outside of Welly, but I think there was always these weird rivalries. But I think because when I started going to Welly, I started hanging around with this girl who was sort of like met her through my ex-girlfriend and a girl called Terry, and she was like really, really cool. And she would go out with her mum and sisters. They'd all go out together. She had two older sisters and then a mum.
What's the surname?
Dolan.
Dolan, right? Yeah, I know Lucy and Andrea.
Yeah. That Terry's older sister Lucy went out with Tom Atkin, I think, and the song
like that, yeah.
21 is about her.
Yeah.
And I used to go out with them, and then they'd be like scrapping with girls, and they'd be like, "Oh bloody hell," I don't. And when you're like 16, 17, you just want to be liked, so you don't really want to get involved in all that beef, and it's just that sort of like just carries on. And yeah, I don't know, people just get too pissed, and someone says something or gives them a funny look, and that's it.
There was always fight. I used to like just stay out of it usually, but
I was too busy dancing like a camp robot in the corner of Welly. Like,
well, you mentioned Jamie, and I always remember Jamie doing like just like real like memorable dances, a bit like Alan from the Rakes or something.
Yeah, it's because he's long, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
For gravity, but yeah, like it was. I mean, dancing to like Blackwire in the corner or Scientists, like Blackwire got played every week, which was great. But yeah, there was these weird rivalries, and I think everyone just sort of grew up and ended up like playing football together or going to, work in the same places, and now we're on each other's podcasts and DJing.
yeah, definitely. So were you DJing at Welly at one point? Did you say?
That's where it all started, I think, because so the only way I could get in Welly back then, because I think I was probably 16 or 17, and I'd get in through the side door.
Okay.
Sam went in, and Sam was like, "Yeah, come down." It got to a point where other people were coming with me to try and get in, because they sort of remember Welly was sort of up and down with like ID checks and stuff.
Yeah.
There was that bouncer who got done for. They were all a bit weird, weren't they? Them bouncers.
Yeah. What was he? The big one. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was nonsense about, I think.
Yeah.
Always letting in, they're always letting in like young girls and stuff, and then they started IDing, and all you had to do was give them your bank card or something like that, and they'd check that, so it looked like on camera they were checking something.
All right.
There was one time where they wouldn't let me in because I had you remember the connections cards?
Yeah.
College, and I sort of tampered with it to try and make the 8 look like a 7, and the bouncer was like, "No, that's been fucked with that, mate. You can't come in." But then luckily, like, there was a girl called Jo who worked at Welly, who I think was, or still is, was married to Mark.
Yeah.
The Irish guy. And she was like, "Will they not let you in?" And I was like, "No, they won't let me in." So then they took me around the side door and I got in there. Sam showed me how to work the decks, and Sam just had like loads of CDs and mixes, and then it got to a point where I could sort of bring my own tapes down, like mix CDs down, and then start like just playing a few tunes. And I play like really obscure stuff, like even then, like the Maccabees was like really obscure, playing like Echo or something, and I was playing El Milano or Blackwire, and it was just like messing about, pressing play and fading out, stuff like that. And it sort of I went from there really, and a lot of the stuff that Sam played was like what I'd given him or told him what to play, like, because Blackwire, the greatest band that never was, like that Hard to Love, Easy to Lay got played every Thursday for I'd say about 4 or 5 years without fail.
Yeah.
And it was that one song that people had no idea who sung it, but everyone knew the song.
Yeah.
That bass line at the beginning is just like, it's one of the best bass lines ever written. Like once it comes in, it's like, oh fucking hell. But yeah, that would be on like every single week. You could just ask Sam for it and he'd play it. But it sort of went from there. And then me and Jamie's sister Becky, we started, I think we DJ'd, well, because Becky DJ'd quite a lot. She did like a lot of Northern Soul nights. And then me and her did a night, remember Zebra on near the bridge?
Yeah. Became Chi, didn't it? Something
like that. And we got asked to put on an indie night on a Wednesday. And I can't remember what the name of it was. And we had a launch night, and it was.
I reckon we probably came. Yeah,
I think you might have done, and it was a Wednesday night, and you know, again, we were playing like, I mean, it sounds like weird to say now, but we were playing like Lethal Bizzle and Dizzy Rascal. So like we had this like promo copy of Pow by Lethal Bizzle, and it even had like promotional use only over the track, and we play stuff like that because a lot of our mates, because like I say, our mates were like a weird mishmash of people who were into like hardcore and punk and whatnot, and then they got into like grime and hip hop. So we were playing like weird emo stuff, then playing like grime as well. So it's quite I think we probably lost a lot of punters, but we did that night for a little bit, and then we DJ'd Lamp for a little bit as well, like a sort of pre-rhythm room warm up that had a shuttle bus that would go there later on. And I think that was through Dean Shakespeare.
What's that be? All right. What night of the week was that on?
It was like a Tuesday, I think, and me and Becky were just DJ in the back room. No one would dance, but it was just me and Becky. Like we'd play The Faint, we'd play El Milano, we'd play Good Shoes, Noisettes, all of that, and we just play what we want. I think.
Yeah.
I think at that age, is sort of showing off. Like look what I've got. You don't even know who sings this, do you? But it's a really good song. We play like TV on the radio and stuff, and
it's pretty a big deal. I remember like. Like some of those, like the Easter nights, or like the Christmas ones used to be massive. So if you were DJing that, like you'd be having yourself, I reckon.
Yeah, the A-level night as well. Like that was
yeah.
There's a queue down the road and stuff. But yeah, it sort of went from that, and then sort of like dipped in and out of it when I was in Leeds. I never really learned how to do it proper, like mix or anything. You didn't really have to with like indie nights. You don't really need to do it. But then sort of started running nights in London, did like an R&B and hip hop night, and then I think it was 2016 where I started doing the indie one.
Yeah,
because that was off the back of. Do you remember that indie amnesty hashtag? That
yeah,
2016, and there was this big, there was loads of like articles written about it. So I put together a Spotify playlist of songs from that era, and then I put it on Facebook, and it was like, oh, this is great, it's really taking me back. And I was like, why don't I just put on an indie night? I don't think anyone was really doing them. Well, there's probably a few in Camden. I think there was one in Islington as well, the O2.
I suppose it's become a bit passé at that point, had they?
It had, yeah. It's like we're sort of at that age now where it is nostalgic, which is quite sad. We're playing like the songs we had, and it's like when we were like 18, going to an 80s night.
Yeah.
It's that sort of, that's how far we've gone with it. But I think it's interesting now because doing the one at the Victoria in Dalston, like the crowd is quite like, it's quite a range of ages. Like you get people like early 20s to like people in their 40s who've not been to like that age. Like you get like a stag do that have come down,
right, okay.
But because I did like the Arctic Monkeys special, and what's really mad about that one is that people forget they've been going nearly 20 years now. I saw.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it?
I think you might have been there at the Silhouettes gig.
I think I remember I weirdly have a memory of you stood outside that.
Yeah, but in 2005, I think it was.
Yeah.
And but now, like I do like an Arctic Monkeys special because it's just an easy one to do, and it gets a lot of people in. But you get people like asking for like coming and requesting star treatment. Do you know what I mean? And I'm like, it's a great song, but it's a really slow one.
Yeah.
But then you play like Ritz to the Rubble, and some people just aren't as into that as they are post AM. So it's interesting how to sort of observe that from afar, from the stage of like people quite young. You see that sort of fashion trends and the way they dress, like as well. It's like fits a certain aesthetic, and it's like they're asking for like new stuff. Or even now, it's like let's say when we were 18 and we were into 80s music and going to an 80s night and dressing like we're in the 80s, it's kind of like that. But I don't think the fashion thing's really followed. You don't really see people with like mullet haircuts and Converse and blazers. But you sort of get people who are sort of getting into that like era of indie, like we would have been with bands like Joy Division and
Okay, right.
you know what I mean? So like when we were that age, I think the bands that, if you think of the time scale, it would have been bands like Gang of Four and Joy Division and stuff like that, and the Smiths, I imagine, you know. But now people who are our age now, or it's hard to explain, but that's not a by the way. But you know, it's that's like their sort of interest now. Like they're into that era of bands. It's like them people who still dress like the Rolling Stones, like wearing the flares and the little leather jackets and the hats. You know, it's kind of like that. I think people are sort of
the mod haircuts
for it, but they like the aesthetic of it and the music that came with it. So yeah, it's been quite interesting to see how that sort of changed over the years. So the night was called, it was originally called Whatever Happened, which is the first track off Room on Fire, but I think it was meant to be as well like a sort of whatever happened to, you know,
right, yeah,
wearing winkle pickers. And there was another indie night. I mean, I'm not saying they're copying me. Oh, I am saying they're copying me, but they did this night at in somewhere in London Fields, and they called it the 2007 Indie Disco. And their sort of blurb,
2007.
Yeah, and they're like their blurb was like, "Remember when Korg synthesizers? Remember when you had every?" And I was like, "Fuck off!" Like it's pretty much just like ripped off the entire blurb. But you know, my girlfriend thinks I'm mad for saying that, and she thinks no, it's not. It's not. They've not copied yet, but they have. But yeah, it was called Whatever Happened, and it was in Oxford Circus, so it's actually, you know, not ideal because it was so central. And then
but how would you make, just out of interest, how are you making these connections about where to put on the nights and stuff?
So my mate Bruce, he ran the Phoenix in Oxford Circus at the time, and they had a really good venue downstairs, and they've got some really good like established nights down there. Like one was called Feeling Gloomy, which is like an indie night.
But I went there on a Friday once not so long ago, a few years ago.
Yeah, there was one called Heavy Soul, maybe Heavy Soul, like a psychedelic night. And Feeling Gloomy and How Does It Feel to Be Loved, and they were sort of like Brit poppy nights, and so started doing it down there, and it went really well for it. Then there'd be nights where it was just like terrible because like the weather would be shit and nobody wants to come into central London.
Right.
Got in touch with the Victoria and started doing it there. It's done better there than it ever has, and it's been going for a few years there now. And I think there was one that I did, which I think was a Stroke special, and it was the first Saturday after all the clubs had reopened.
Right. Yeah, that's when Markham went down.
Yeah, it's after COVID, so it was absolutely rammed, and like, you know, people were wearing masks inside and stuff, and I felt bad putting a club night on in like that, you know, during COVID, but people had chosen to be there, you know, at their own risk, I suppose, and weren't really any restrictions at the time. Yeah, it's quite sporadic. It's not every month, but there's a risk it becomes quite saturated, I think, sometimes. I mean, the last one I did was on Pride Day.
Yeah.
And NTS had been on in Dalston as well, so a lot of people sort of came to Victoria after that. And the crowd was, you know, I had to play like the Cortinas, which I'd never usually play, and there was people coming up to me and saying, there was a girl came up, she was like, "Have you got any sing-along like indie tunes?"
Oh God.
And you know, you sort of know where it's going to go. And someone asked for Chelsea Dagger.
I was just thinking for Telly,
because I used to play that at Rhythm Room all the time. And then this girl was like, "Have you got She's So Lovely by Scouting for Girls?" Like, look, I'm really sorry. I'm not going to play that. Even if I had it, I wouldn't. And she's like, "Oh, please, if you can, like, because everyone will go mad." I was like, "They won't. That they'll leave. Like, there's no way I can do that." So then some guy was asking for a band called DMAs, who I've only heard of a few times, but
right, yeah.
That. So I ended up playing like loads of Arctic Monkeys just to keep them happy. It happens sometimes. You can have one night where you can like play some really obscure stuff like Out of the Races and Onto the Tracks by The Rapture, and everyone will go mad. Or someone asked for, do you remember, you know, well, it's still going, but you remember Chick Chick Chick, the 3 exclamation marks?
Possibly, I don't know.
Yeah, so they were like I think people called like a dance punk band, and I think one of them's an LCD sound system, and it was like saying, "Can you play Part of My Freedom by Check Check Check?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'd love to," because for just one person to have a really good time on that song, playing at the club is like enough. And if it clears out people for 5 minutes to go to the bar, it's fine.
Yeah.
But you play like, you play like White Rose Movement, or you play a Blackwire tune and people are like, oh, Claw, Love and Pain.
Yeah.
Song. And people was like, I've not heard this song for like years, and like 10 years, or if not longer. And they get really excited by it. So sometimes you can sort of like take that risk, but other times you've got people who just want Arctic Monkeys and Oasis. But yeah, it's just really good fun. Like it is nostalgic now. It's pretty much the same set every time, just playing the same songs. I might have a few like you've always got to play like the Walkman, but then some, you think sometimes like you play the Rap by the Walkman and the whole place everyone would start crying, like banging the wall and stuff. But then some people just don't like that stuff, or don't know it.
Yeah, it's mad.
Which I find weird. It's quite a weird. You get a lot of walk-ups that come, so they'll know all the big bangers, but then they might not know stuff like the Walkman and the Rapture and stuff like that. Even like Fellas Lovers, people just don't go as mad to that one as you think they would. That
was a Welly staple, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, play it all the time. I mean, what were the Welly staples? What
yeah, it's a good question. Yeah,
you need to get Sam. You need to get Sam on.
Yeah, I know. I was looking forward to chatting to him.
It was always Hard to Love, Easy to Learn.
Yeah.
By Blackwire.
Love and Pain definitely as well.
Love and Pain came on a few times. There was always an El Milano song quite early on. It was a remix of a song called Katsuki and the Stiletto Strangers or something.
Right.
And Sam would always play One Arm Scissor by which is quite heavy. But then he'd always play like We Are Scientists, like Great Escape.
I remember Nobody Move, Nobody Get Hurt. I remember hearing me and Markham like it's one of those like Blackwire. It's like you knew the song but you didn't know the band, so you'd have to go away and find out who it was.
Yeah. It's just like you get like sometimes like Sam would do like 8 songs in a row and it was just like 8 bangers. You get a good like Gorillas. I mean, obviously not done, but like or like Kaiser Chiefs. Like right, I'm gonna go for a smoke now. I'll go get a drink.
Yeah.
But he's having like a solid like he'd play like Blackwire and then One Arm Scissor, and then it would be like Obstacle One by Interpol or Evil, by Interpol.
Yeah.
You go into sort of dark like New York era, but yeah, there was always those like staples. I
remember always going to the bar for like we used to play House of Pain a lot. I always used to go for a piss then.
Yeah. I think we'd always play Without Fail every week because he was quite like it once in there. He played like some pretty.
He used to play out. He used to finish on Outer Space all the time, didn't he?
That's the one. Yeah, he'd always play Outer Space by Prodigy, didn't he?
Yeah.
That was always on every week. So there was always like staples, but I think it did a lot for people, like hearing songs for the first time at nights like that.
It was brilliant. He had there was Welly Radio for a bit, one of Jelly Radio or something.
Yeah, and I think he's not doing Welly anymore. I think he's doing another night at Piper.
I mentioned that. I think
he's done it for like nearly 20 years. Like I think it's like 18 years, maybe. I've been a few times. Like I went in on Boxing Day. This was 2019, just before COVID, and had like the best night in there. And when you've been living like London and Leeds, and everyone's really cool. Like no one's calling anyone in Welly. Like everyone's just having a nice time. Like it used to be like that back in the day, but it was just everyone was just really nice, and everyone was having a really good time. Like there was no trouble whatsoever. But yeah, it was just a good way for people to like hear bands, and then people just went in the same circle. People go to the same gigs. You go to see bands that you've probably never heard before because, it was harder to get the music back then. You had to like really have a really good internet connection and be able to download like quite quickly, or you'd know where to find it. That's where Jamie came in handy because we'd give like CDs to. Sorry, I'm meandering a bit here, but we'd give CDs to like Dean Shakespeare and say like, "Oh, this is a band called El Milano from Brighton." The Maccabees from Brighton. Like Jamie even messaged the Maccabees on MySpace and asked them to come to Hull.
Yeah, didn't he say you had like a bit of a part to play in them playing in Hull or something?
Well, I think because we gave Dean the CD and said like, have a listen because I think try and get them booked. And they played. I think they played Lamp twice.
Yeah, definitely saw them at Lamp once. Yeah,
and then they played Welly, and like we hung out with them a few times. They were really really nice. Yeah, and they had I think Maccabees played a Lamp twice, and people just go down and you've had the Noisettes and Good Shoes played together one night, and I think Falls were meant to play and they're cancelled, and El Milano played Hull a few times.
Third Lamp, yeah.
They were brilliant, and they were from Brighton, and the singer now he's called Clarence Clarity. Like his music's like really, it's like left field pop. It's produced for a few people, but
I might try and get him on actually.
Yeah, it's I don't know if he even talks about that era anymore. To be honest, I think
Oh, really?
But that I had a sort of funny running with Jamie T when I was working at like a similar thing where I was working at a pub in Hackney, and Jamie T was coming there for drinks, and I was doing this indie night, and I asked him if he fancied doing a DJ set, but I think he was a bit offended because he's still creating and writing music. He doesn't feel like he belongs to that era. It's like a pastiche of that era. And he was like, "Oh no, I don't really do things like that, mate." I was like, "Oh yeah, no worries." But yeah, anyway, El Milano like played like 2 or 3 times, I think, in Hull, and there were another band that a lot of people were into in Hull, and they even said they had a really like a bizarrely big fan base in Hull.
Yeah.
Jamie and I would send like Kinman El Milano songs over like MSN, and he'd send it to people, and they played a few times, and yeah, people just go to those gigs and end up hearing the bands off the back of it. So, and Blackwire as well. Like Blackwire played Hull about 5 times, I think, if not more.
And you put them on once?
I put them on once, yeah. I say put them on. I sort of just organised it. Like it was at the Welly. It was upstairs, and it was Killsurf City supported.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, they supported him, and yeah, I put them on because I just wanted to put a gig on, and they played upstairs at Welly, and they sort of stuck around for a bit, and I sort of got to know them a bit. Like you've had them on the podcast, and Dan's just the nicest guy. Like, and they were in Leeds, so they weren't like traveling far to play. I saw them once just on the off chance, and I went with like my friends Terry and her sisters, and they were like, "Oh, there's a band playing at the Adelphi tonight," because they'd seen them at a thing called Nasty Fest. There was a festival in Leeds at the Faversham, like an all-dayer, called Nasty Fest, and they'd have like, I think I went to one to move there. When I went, I think it was, I think Yesayer headlined, and there was a guy called Cadence Weapon. But then, I think Forward Russia might have played it one year, and they'd seen them at Nasty Fest in Leeds, and so I went down with them, and there must have been about 10 people there, and they were just amazing. Like Dan was just great. Did you ever see Blackwire? You must have seen him in Hull.
I think I saw him in Hull, yeah, at some point, yeah.
They played with the Cribs one night as they supported the Cribs, I think. But yeah, the first time I saw them, they were just playing at the Adelphi, and there was I don't know if Dan mentioned this on the podcast, but there was a guy there who was wearing a leather jacket and he had tights on but no underpants, so you could see his penis, and he was just wandering around the Adelphi with his willy out. Right. Blackwire were playing on stage, and they had a drum machine, and it was really like really intense. And I'm sort of like nostalgic for like Blackwire because there was no other way of hearing their music apart from going to see them. So like you couldn't go on MySpace and download it. They had like maybe one song on there, but you had to have, I think I had the Hard to Love, Easy to Lay single. And then the only way you could hear their songs, like you just remembered it from when you first saw them and thought like, I need to hear that again. You had to just go and see them until they brought out their album. And I think I bought it off Amazon like when it first came out. I think I pre-ordered it. And I think they're like one of the greatest bands that never were. I think there was like a sort of victim of being on like a really shit label and never really getting the full exposure that they deserved. But yeah, they were brilliant. And a lot of people like reference them for like starting bands. I remember the Claxons were like saying they were the reason that they formed the Claxons because they saw Blackwire. But they played Hull quite a bit, and it was always just like so exciting to see them because again, they were cool as fuck. Like Dan was like an amazing frontman. They looked really good. They were really, really nice as well. And the tunes were like banging. And then they broke up. But I saw them when they reformed though, at birthdays in Dalston.
Yeah.
It's still brilliant. It's still absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
But yeah, I put them on at the Welly, and I think it's the only gig I ever put on. The first and last, I think.
Was that like a Thursday night, or was it different or something?
Yeah, it was a Thursday night because Jelly was on afterwards.
Right, that must be where I saw them probably, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember DJing it as well, and before they came on, and I played SOS by Rihanna. It was such a great tune. But yeah, That was the.
Yes.
I was like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna play Rihanna SOS," and it was such a good tune. And
But yeah, just want to talk about Leeds as well. Like, did you know you were going to go to Leeds? It's felt like a bit of a thing in Hull, didn't it? Like that was the next step up a little bit.
It was sort of an exodus. It was like a step up, wasn't it? It was like a level cooler, like
Yeah.
a mini London, and everyone in Leeds looked great. And the club nights played exactly what you wanted them to play. So you go out to like the Faversham, or there was a really good night called Gigantic on a Thursday, and they'd play like TV on the radio. They'd play Q and Not You, back then you'd call it obscure, like indie bands or stuff like that. And then it was a bit of a step up. I think the only reason why I moved there I think the story is like when Sam would play Inertiatic ESP by the Mars Vault on a Thursday, there was this I'd like lose my head to it and go mad dancing with Andy Holmes and stuff. And there was this other lad who would dance to it and knew all the words. Like, who the fuck's this? And I'd see him like every week. He used to wear like tight white jeans and stuff, and a blazer. And no one was wearing tight white jeans back then. That was a really bold move, apart from Johnny Burrell, but that was like a bold move at the time. And he then found me on MySpace because my background on MySpace was the Mars Volta. And he must have clicked through people and ended up on like my page. And he messaged me. He was like, "You live in Hull, you love the Mars Volta. Like, why are we not mates?" And then we became like really good friends. Then went to Spiders one night with he was from Scunthorpe. And then we went to Spiders, and two of his friends from Scunthorpe came down, and they lived in Leeds. And so like became friends with them. And Leeds just looked really cool. Everyone had like weird black hair and wore like tiny shirts and suits and winkle pickers. And I was like, I think that's the next step for me. And it was only like, I moved there when I was 19. So it was just like another level of cool. Like,
yeah,
everyone, even if it was only an hour down the road in a car or on train, it just had this weird, like, maybe because it's a uni town, I'm not sure, but it's people putting on like really good club nights. There was a really good one called Idiotech, that played like Camera Obscura and Bell and Sebastian and Radiohead, and you could just never hear that. There was no nights in Hull that played that where you could go out and dance to that sort of stuff. And then just ended up like hanging out with people who went to those nights and who were in bands and stuff, and seeing bands at the Fav and Brudenell, and then everyone started sort of migrating there, or people come for a night out in Leeds, they'd go to like the Cockpit.
Yeah.
RIP. And again, they had great bands passing through, like historically, like at the Drive-In played in Leeds, Strokes played in Leeds, White Stripes, everyone. But there'd always be like good gigs on. I remember seeing the Rapture and Black Kids. Remember Black Kids?
Yeah.
They sort of just like disappeared. And bands like Woo Life and stuff. And it was just like, it meant that like I could live somewhere where I didn't feel like I was going to be judged for what I wore. And that's one like the things in Hull, like you just knew that you were going to get called gay, like so like probably by my dad, to be honest. But it's like, you know, people would call you like homophobic names because you had like
yeah
your shoes. Whereas in Leeds, like you could just sort of, I felt comfortable like being like that and didn't feel like you'd been looked at. You know, walking around East Hull with winkle pickers and girls' jeans on, like you get your head kicked in.
Yeah.
My dad was so embarrassed by it.
Really?
My dad's like, you know, he's like carpet fitter by trade, like goes to watch the rugby, you know, and he's got this son who's like 7 or 8 stone, who looks like he's been doing crack and has got this big hair and wears like winkle pickers. I think he was just really embarrassed. Like, I mean, we're fine now, but when you look at it back then, like I looked like a fucking idiot. But then going to Leeds, when I could just do that, like with no qualms. Like there was loads of good vintage shops and there was loads of gigs on. There was like really cool people. You sort of wanted to hang out with those people and become friends with them. And everyone was having like really cool house parties. And it was like a cool off. Again, you were just saying, you know, talking about the music like you liked and trying to outdo one another and see who's got the tightest suit and the pointiest shoes and the blackest hair, you know. And it was, yeah. And then everyone started sort of migrating there, I think.
Yeah.
It was like a natural, I suppose, step up, because Hull's like a small place. I think a lot of people wanted to get out of Hull because it was like a goldfish and like a goldfish bowl. And everyone knew each other, everyone knew each other's business, everyone had slept with each other, you know. Couldn't go out with someone because they'd been with someone that you knew.
Yeah.
You know, and it was like a sort of step out of that. And I think for a while I thought like I think I sort of bad mouthed Hull and Welly for a little bit, and think because I thought I was cooler than everybody else because I was living in Leeds like an hour down the road. I was just been a dick. I had stupid hair, like cut a fringe in and stuff, and everyone's like, "Oh fucking hell, you've moved to Leeds." But then Hull sort of goes through like weird phases as well, like fashion and music phases. Like I remember, like I'd come home and everyone's suddenly like listening to the Black Keys. That was what everyone was listening to. Or everyone got really into Edward Sharp and the Magnetic.
Yeah.
Everyone got really into that band for some reason. No idea.
I think it's weird. Well, for me, it was like Saturdays became the new Thursdays at Welly.
Yeah, because
like I think Corey and Bill were kind of dictating a little bit what people were listening to at that point. I think.
Yeah. It's funny, like because then even the fashion trends, I'd come back and like I think it's Kimmon's fault, but wearing Doc Martens with trackies and stuff, and people wearing tracksuits on nights out, you know, that became a thing. It's
very Josh Hubbard, that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he always sort of looked cool. He moved to New York, though, didn't he? So like, whatever, you know. But
yeah. Were you in Leeds for 3 years then?
No, I was there for. I think I was there for 4 in total because I left there in 2012.
What course were you doing?
I was studying Spanish. I was doing.
Of course, yeah.
So I did 3. I messed about my first year, so I started again, and then I did 2 years, and I had to do my year abroad. So I moved to San Sebastian in the north of Spain, and taught English. Then came back. But even living in Spain, like I managed to find like 2 really good indie nights that were like, you know, people were playing Arcade Fire and TV on the radio. Like someone was playing like Dancing Shoes by TV on the radio, and I was like, "Why? No one's dancing to this. Like, no one's going to dance with me." So I had to you have to sort of seek these things out. It becomes a thing. Like you want to go out, you want to dance to stuff that you like, you know.
Yeah.
Find place there, and then I came back to finish my final year, and then moved to London to do my teacher training.
Okay. So
I've been down here for about 11 years now.
Yes.
Long time.
Nice.
But yeah, Leeds was sort of like the bit in between where I think then again, people moved out of Leeds to move to London.
Yeah, that became another thing, didn't it?
People got bored of it, and but now everyone's moving out of London, it seems.
Yeah. All right, nice one, mate. That's this. So in terms of like following, you've got an Instagram page for your nights and stuff, haven't you?
Yeah, it's the LDN.
Yeah, I guess spot on.
But I'm going to set up a proper page for all of my thing. But
yeah, and cheers for commissioning the podcast artwork, by the way.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah, when I saw it, I was like, cheeky fucker. I recognise that. I used to pay Dan to do them, but now I've got Procreate on my iPad, so I just do it myself.
Fair, right? Are you doing the ones now, do you?
These are sit ones I do, yeah.
So they're pretty cool, yeah.
What Dan was doing is just trace over it and colour it in, but yeah, it's doing that now. So yeah.
Nice one.
Well, it's fun to chat.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, we'll have a good one tonight.
I hope so.
Where is it tonight then?
It's at the Victoria again.
Right.
Yeah. So I was doing there now. It's easy setup. So yeah, it should be all right. Done about 43 sign-ups, I think.
I can imagine the music you're playing tonight gets a good reaction, doesn't it?
Well, it does because like I think no matter like what you're into, you're gonna know all the words to Britney Spears and Taylor Swift and Kelly Clarkson. Like
yeah.
Avril Lavigne. Like you get like it's sometimes on after a gig, so like a weird like post-punk indie band playing, and then I'll start playing Taylor Swift and everyone sticks around and just has a good time. There's just no pretense behind it. It's just, you know, it's just pure like happy pop music that you can't really argue with it, to be honest, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah,
that sounds good.
Yeah, cool, man.
Oh man, nice one. I'll let you know next time I'm down. Hopefully, don't know, sometime soon. But yeah, cheers for doing that, mate. Yeah.
Take care.